Bienvenue. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us here on Stir Crazy, episode number 66. I'm your host, Kim Brown. Hey, guys, this is the show where we sit around and discuss politics, things that are happening in and around the news cycle, and things that generally deserve our attention, our scrutiny, our discussion, our analysis, our WTFs, if you will. And we are definitely here to bring all this information and present it to you. And we want you to be part of our discussion. Today's episode is basically about why are we out here trying to kill the kids? Why are we out here trying to thrust the children back into the midst of a global pandemic, the likes of which the United States is doing a horrible job of managing and seemingly getting worse by the day. But better have them schools open, per our president of the United States, and many of his ilk are determined to reopen schools, as they were also as determined to reopen the economy, and we have seen what has happened there. So coming up on today's program, guys, we're going to have a bit of a free-flowing conversation. There are some specifics that we're going to get into as it relates to coronavirus, reopening schools, and where we stand really in dealing with this, and how much longer is this thing going to go on? But it seems as though the country is determined to drag this out. As we look across the globe at Europe and Asia, and everybody else has got their shit together, not the United States. No. The true shithole country has finally stood up and made itself clear, as if to let everybody know that we are indeed number one. So of course, we always want to hear from you. If you're in the chat, if you're in the comments, you can holler at us, hit us up, drop your questions, drop your critiques, all that. What's up to everyone that's watching live on Twitter via Periscope? How you doing? Happy Bastille Day. How do you say it in French? Bon fête nationale. If you are celebrating the 14th of July across the globe, and really we all should be celebrating Bastille Day, to be perfectly honest. And listen, before we get started, I want to bring in and introduce our great panel. We have two of our real newsers joining us today. Our executive producer is here, Lisa Snowden-McCray, and our climate bureau reporter, Aman Azhar, is here as well. Thank you both for being here. Nice to see y'all's shining lovely faces.
Hi.
So, gang, where I want to start off is clearly the coronavirus, because the United States is leading the world, or either first or second. We seem to be going back and forth with Brazil as to who has the most infections, but the United States is outpacing a lot of countries. Even the state of Florida, I believe, if Florida was ranked as a country as it relates to positive coronavirus cases, would have been ranked like fifth, according to the WHO, and has been setting records for daily coronavirus cases. I believe that they have about 4,200 deaths, or approaching that number, the state of Florida alone. Here in the US, we are over 130,000 people dead, with over 3 million infected with coronavirus. But the president of the United States, his cabinet, are saying that not only do we need to reopen the economy, but we need to reopen schools as well. And there's been a lot of pushback coming from not only parents, but more specifically teachers are saying, now wait just a second. You can't send us back into the classroom with all them snot boogers, all them filthy children. We all know how nasty kids are. And I say this as a non-parent. I'm sure parents look at their kids a little bit more favorably than people who don't have kids. But we know that kids carry all kinds of stuff. And the science is not clear, despite what Betsy DeVos says about kids not being big transmitters and carriers of coronavirus. This thing is too new. We really don't know that. Lisa, you are the parent of the crew, and you've already told us before that you have no intention of sending your kids back to school. But what are your thoughts about people who may be compelled to return to the classroom, most specifically teachers who are concerned, obviously, with teachers either themselves being older or having underlying conditions, or sharing a residence with another person who does have an underlying condition? Is it right? Or no, the question really isn't right. is this a good time for the teachers to say, fuck all this shit? We're not going back to school. Y'all can't make us go back to school. It's either distance learning or nothing.
It's a great time. I think we've already been demanding so much of teachers. My mom actually taught elementary school for 30 years. And even back then, you know, when I was a kid, I remember seeing her use her own money to pay for supplies, working well beyond, you know, anything like 9 to 5 hours, working early in the morning, late at night. And it's only gotten worse. Like I was even thinking the other day, like every year, when my kids are getting ready to go back to school, my kids are in, they'll be going to 5th grade and 7th grade. We've always gotten like the list of, you know, make sure that you send extra hand sanitizer for the class, make sure you send extra Clorox wipes and antibacterial wipes, because they don't even have those things. And now it's worse because, you know, before it was just the regular old gross cruddy things that you pick up from your kids when school year starts every year. And now we have this deadly virus, and it's just, it can't happen. And I feel like this virus has really been like a reckoning on every part of our life, the way that we've kind of accepted so many things. And this is another part that kind of just needs a shakedown too. Like we can't keep expecting teachers to teach kids. Like how is that even going to be a happy or productive learning environment when the adults in charge are literally afraid for their lives? Like it can't. So we're not even asking teachers to really teach. We're asking them to kind of watch our kids for a while so that everybody can get back to work and get the economy started. And that's just like ghastly.
I have not heard word one whether or not Barron Trump is going back to Sidwell Friends come September. No one has said that. And I believe Betsy DeVos also has school-age children. And I haven't heard word one about whether or not she intends on sending her children back for in-person instruction. But Aman, here's the crazy thing. Some of the talking points that's coming out the White House really just baffle me. But on one hand, it makes a sliver of sense. For example, the White House press secretary, Kayleigh McEnany, I can't think of her name. But what she said was, so for example, when children go to school, that is how cases of child abuse, for example, are detected. It's school officials or, teachers or school nurses are usually the reporters when it comes to issues of abuse for children. We know that a lot of children, tens of millions of American children, depend on school lunch as their sustenance, as the meals that they will eat for that day. And I think these are legitimate arguments, but I'm not sure if they outweigh the global pandemic. What are your thoughts about the arguments that are coming from the conservative side? Basically, it's Republicans that are in a big rush to reopen the schools and get the kids back there.
I think you said it right. It's like White House is talking to climate deniers and COVID deniers. So we have like two categories now meshed up. And going to school, Kim, is about going to a safe environment. Now, like you've described, when there's a problem, like Lisa said, I like to echo that. But when you have kids and when you have teachers who are actually afraid, you don't know, science is inconclusive. There's nothing as yet that suggests that kids cannot be impacted. This is something which is still going on. These are early stages of what this might hold in terms of science and medicine and everything. It's such a beginning. This is like this administration is also keeping the entire school system hostage and kind of just creating that kind of a wave of terror for all the teachers, that either you go back to school or you lose something, you lose your job or so. So that's the approach, which essentially is symptomatic of a fact that there is virtually no plan that the White House has in terms of comprehensively addressing the issue, or rather reframing all the systems which are impacted by this global pandemic, which is having a resurgence. You said that. I mean, all the pointers point to the fact that things are once again getting worse. So I think what this has pretty much exposed that we have a broken police system. We have a broken politics, a broken economy, and a broken education system. It's not that the technology is not there. I mean, these technologies have been experimented with in terms of virtual educations for a while now, and they can be implemented. They have been implemented. This whole issue of sending kids back to school with that physical space just does not square with what the demands of this time is. And that only points to the fact that this administration does not have a plan. They just want to go back to the things that they used to be in pre-COVID time, which is essentially wrong. This is like getting people back into pushing them to their own, to dangerous territories. Who might get what from where, than anybody's guess. So I am certainly not in favor of something like this. And this is another category of COVID deniers that the White House is actually prompting by doing this.
And for some reason, and I'm not quite able to figure this out, conservatives, especially elected officials, have been saying that, keeping schools closed is a political play. And I'm like, well, who in the hell benefits politically from that? I want to play this clip that aired on Fox News the other night on Sean Hannity's program, of all places. Louisiana Senator Kennedy, I think his name is John Kennedy, which is strange that there's another John Kennedy elected to the Senate and not related to the Massachusetts Kennedys, but that's neither here nor there. But here's Senator Kennedy in all his righteous Dixie indignation talking about why and who gains, who benefits from keeping the schools closed. Let's take a look at that.
America's going through a rough patch right now, Sean. Some people seem to be enjoying it. Maybe they just hate America. Maybe they just enjoy watching the world burn. I think some are liking the chaos because they think it gives them a political advantage. Part of that chaos is being caused by our schools closing. For our kids, we need to open them. I can promise you, for many of our kids, keeping these schools closed is going to hurt them far worse than the coronavirus can. France, Germany,
Go ahead, sir.
Denmark, Austria, Vietnam. Even Vietnam has opened their schools. And they've done it safely, and we can too, and we should too. And if I could say one other thing, I know some people in good faith disagree with me, and I respect that. Let's have the debate. But there are some people who want to keep our schools closed because they think it gives them a political advantage. And they're using our kids as political pawns. And to them, I say unashamedly, they can kiss my ass. That's wrong to do that to the kids of America. Not the people in good faith, but those who are just enjoying the chaos because they think it's going to help them in November.
Lady and gentlemen, I am in confusion because I don't know anyone that is enjoying this moment. Honestly, I mean, seriously, even people who have to work from home, they're not enjoying this moment. People who are being forced to go out and work at essential jobs in the midst of the pandemic, they are not enjoying this moment. Parents who are trapped at home with their children all goddamn day, they are definitely not enjoying this moment. I feel like, this is a made up political boogeyman. Like, dog, who are you talking to? Like, who are you referring to? Who amongst us is benefiting politically from this? Who is enjoying this? Who likes to watch the world burn? I'm so confused as to who is the enemy that Senator Kennedy is talking about here, Lisa Snowden. I mean, the fuck. That's all I can really say to that.
This feels like the administration of gaslighting and projection because Republicans are benefiting. When you tell parents, you have to work, then parents have to do something with their kids. I'm very blessed to be at the Real News where I can, basically struggle at home with trying to keep my kids in order while I'm also getting work done. But there are so many people that have to work at grocery stores, have to work in hospitals. And so other countries, the countries that he's referencing, are the ones that made it possible for parents to safely shelter in place while this disease kind of went through their community. And we didn't do that. we've told people, no, like, we're not going to give you money. We'll break you off a little bit of, change, that little stimulus that I still know so many people who haven't gotten. But other than that, buck it up and get to work. So that's them. Like, that's, you are the person in the mirror that's keeping this stuff going, sir.
Seriously, I mean, Aman, the audacity for Senator Kennedy and Betsy DeVos, and I think even President Trump has rattled off a list of European and Asian countries that have already reopened schools and have gotten back to normal, while very carefully omitting the fact that, yes, these countries also did pay their citizens to stay at home. They did provide them with masks. They did have adequate amounts of PPE, and their citizenry believed in the use and benefits of mask wearing. I mean, to compare us to Vietnam beat the shit out of coronavirus. Meanwhile, coronavirus is over here beating the shit out of the United States. So for John Kennedy to say that, oh, look at Vietnam, they've already reopened, we should be just like Vietnam. We could never be like Vietnam in this moment.
Yeah, it's just incomprehensible that that this comparison could be drawn from the beginning. I mean, these are countries with a very different kind of population, different ethnic mixes, and they have responded differently through their own political systems to this crisis. And to compare that just to politicize or give kind of a political talk on something which is on a day in, day out deciding who lives and who dies is very callous political strategy. It's quite clear, like I said before, Kim, that the White House really does not have a strategy in terms of reframing a lot of issues that confront us on a daily basis and how we live, what kind of work we do, how we do our work, and how to kind of come to grips with the fact that this pandemic is raging. It's resurfacing across the United States once again. And the fact that the political messaging has confused everybody up. I go out in Washington, D.C., and I see scores of people without masks, and I see scores of people with masks. And now there are confrontations between these people about whether to mask up or not. This is the worst kind of political messaging that has come out of White House. It has completely compromised people's health. And on top of it, to go ahead and kind of create this kind of a fake comparison with countries which have nothing in comparison with the United States is completely false. It's just bad politics. It's clear that the conservative playbook is at least 50 years old, which likes to just show people that economy is working. That means that people are going out. They are driving. The economy is working because you can see it, and that's really not how at least advanced economies have come to grips with the fact that they can actually work. Like Lisa was saying, that we at The Real News are fortunate enough to work from home. It's not as though something is not being done. Everything is being done. And on top of it, this is about our personal safety for that matter. So clearly conservatives are not giving a damn about what it means for kids, what it means for teachers, what it means for the entire country. And they are not interested in fixing the system where the fault lies. And a lot of this is entirely because White House doesn't have a strategy on how to reframe these issues. They don't have the capacity, and they have no willingness to do that either.
And guys, go ahead, Lisa. Go ahead.
If I could just kind of add, like, Republicans have always, at least for a lot of my adult life, been really great at politicizing things that should be common sense. Because before coronavirus, we were sending kids to school with knowing that schools were being shot up. Like, school shootings stopped when we shut down schools, not because we had figured out what to do about America's gun crisis. So we were already sending our kids and teachers into harm's way every single day. And we had all kind of agreed to that. Like, it was even a thing that, like, now, as I'm looking at kind of this complete breakdown, like, why did I agree with that? Why didn't I think that's insane? Like, it's happening, and we just let it happen. So I think that we really need to kind of look at everything and figure out, what are we agreeing to? And what have we decided is a political argument point and what is not? What is a good faith argument to say, to crib that Kennedy guy's way of putting it? and what is not. Because sending a child or a teacher out during a pandemic should not be a good faith argument. We shouldn't even have to have that argument. Sending our kids to school when kids are being murdered in their classrooms should not have been a good faith argument.
I saw this thought on Twitter. So I can't take credit for it, so I won't, but I agreed with it. So that's why I'm sharing it, but I can't remember who tweeted it, so my bad. But this was not an original thought by me. But the person basically said to teachers, like, please don't buy into you are a hero. Like, don't buy into that hero trope, because we've already seen how we treat American heroes. If you want to talk about either American veterans or most recently the essential workers, grocery workers, delivery drivers, sanitation workers, nurses and doctors, people who have been on the front lines of this pandemic ever since it broke in the spring, we've treated these people horribly. People in the medical field, we have failed to equip them. They are still very much without necessary equipment. Many, many months later, we're still seeing long lines stretching in Texas and Florida, where people wait literally all day, many hours to try to get a coronavirus test. And if you're able to get one, you may not get the results for a couple of weeks. Like, we are so behind the curve in the situation. But as it relates specifically to teachers, like, no, you guys are in the most unique position to tell everybody to fuck off, seriously, because the economy really depends on people's ability to go to work, and people's ability to go to work depends on their ability to get childcare. And public schools is the best form of childcare. You send your kids, they're gone 8 to 10 hours a day. You know, that's your whole work day. Works out perfectly for a lot of people. But if the teachers aren't present, then the parents can't return to work. Which means that the children have to stay home. And that can possibly shut everything down again until we get this right, which we have gotten absurdly wrong over the past several months here. I wanted to read a couple of comments because we've got some good ones. David S. says, DeVos's plan: force public schools into a situation in which they are guaranteed to fail, launch her grand charter school scheme, collect the money. That seems to be a running theme as to what everybody thinks Betsy DeVos is going to do here. Who else here? We got a comment from Red. Red says, kids are being educated. How about their health? Doesn't matter. It doesn't seem that way, that they are not too concerned about the health of children, and they are even trying to manipulate science or distort some of the early things that we do know about COVID to fit their narrative. And I wanted to ask you guys kind of quickly, in terms of your trust and your faith in the United States federal government right now, about not only how coronavirus is being handled, or rather not handled, but here we are in July. We are in the height of summer, and we know that flu and cold season hasn't even begun yet, but predictably it will come this fall and winter. And then you add COVID into the mix. And then where I'm going with this is the discrediting that we're starting to see of CDC scientists and their work coming from the White House, specifically with Dr. Anthony Fauci, who heads the Department of Infectious Diseases. He's been a very visible and public vocal figure throughout this whole thing. And there was some information being circulated about him from the White House last week that basically listed all of his mistakes, all the stuff he got wrong. Dr. Fauci ain't shit is basically what they're saying. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if Donald Trump gave Dr. Fauci his walking papers sooner rather than later. Should that happen, should we be able to rely upon any information pertaining to the coronavirus that comes out of this administration, Lisa?
No. I don't even have a bunch of fancy words for you. Just no. No. Like, I think there was a story, where was it? I think it was a nursing home in Baltimore where there were basically, there's been lots of nursing homes all over the country that have been ravaged by the coronavirus. This nursing home, which is like the oldest, I think, nursing home in maybe Baltimore that served Black people, they basically said, we're going to do the opposite of everything that Trump said. And they have had like great results from that.
Really?
So we just need to do that. Just whatever they say, just treat it like it's opposite day.
Aman, what are your thoughts about if Donald Trump is able to run off some of the nation's top health experts? I mean, we already know. Shoot, he fired the pandemic team upon arriving at the White House in 2017. So for him to run Dr. Fauci about the spot may not be off brand for Donald Trump at all.
Yeah, I think from what it seems, Donald Trump needs someone always to blame for his failings. And that is part of the culture, because the only thing it seems that the White House is right now focused on is the presidential elections and only speaking to his base. That's all that his strategy has been, that it continues to be that way. And in the process, he's compromising the basic facts and trying to fit everything into his narrative, his political narratives, and all his cronies then echo that. And that is damaging for not just politics, because it's essentially a corruption of sorts, but it also corrupts even the public trust in institutions, like you said earlier on. So naturally, I wouldn't believe anything that's coming out of the White House, of course. And on top of it, that goes on to then kind of make it difficult even for people who are consuming information of whether what is right and what is wrong. So that's then on one thing on top of the other, and that's precisely because the White House is not concerned about who lives and who dies. Their concern right now is their political strategy and trying to fit everything into their narrative, which is just to keep running the economy, just keep a fake picture running that everything is okay. Of course, it's Mr. Trump who said that we are having so many cases because we have so much of a testing going on. If this is the approach of the president, you can imagine what is it that we're dealing with, Kim.
Terrified. And listen, we do have some viewers of Stir Crazy who are abroad, and I'm asking you again to please send help. Please just send a boat, send it right up to the inner harbor. We will be there waiting, waving a flag, like come pick us up and take us back to wherever you are, where it is way better than the United States, because this is not improving, and that's troubling. And the problem is that, especially as it pertains to schools, we are seeing some school districts take a defensive, litigious approach, perhaps, to reopening schools, determined to reopening schools, but at the same time trying to provide a shield of legal liability for themselves. A story that just posted on rawstory.com about the Hazelwood School District. Shout out to St. Louis, out there, right outside of St. Louis. Hazelwood School District, I believe this is a Black school district, or mostly Black. Someone in the comments or the chat, please correct me if I'm wrong. But they are requiring parents who have children involved in either sports or extracurricular activities to sign a legal liability waiver that would preclude them from being able to sue should their child contract COVID and die, which is a terrible position. Not new, tragically, because I think we did a story some weeks back. Southern Methodist University in Texas was requiring their student athletes to report back to campus to begin, OTAs, workout and trainings, et cetera. But having the student athletes, let me repeat that, the student athletes sign a waiver of liability, waiving their right to sue should they come down sick with COVID. I wanted to take a look at this video actually coming out of St. Louis from KMOV. It's a story where the teachers there, again, and if you look on the internet, guys, teachers have been putting their foot down across the country, coast to coast, from Florida, out here in Northern Virginia, Loudoun County, out there in St. Louis, California. They've been doing all the same thing. They're saying, hell no, we are not going for this. This is a story from KMOV interviewing some teachers who were staging a very social distance, but intensive demonstration at their school board. Let's take a look at that.
I've never had a day where I wasn't excited to go to work.
Ribbon Williams says there's a million reasons why she loves her job as a teacher. She spent the last 5 years in the St. Louis Public School District, but doesn't know if she'll return next month.
I don't know what that means for me. I don't know what that means for me as a teacher, as an educator, as a parent myself. I have no idea where my contract lies with this district.
Williams is one of dozens of teachers and faculty members concerned about what the district's back-to-school plan entails and if it'll work. That group making their voices heard, holding signs, protesting silently outside of the district's main office for nearly 2 hours today.
How will we get them safely to the building? They have to catch buses. They have to walk to school. Who's going to be taking temperatures and monitoring students before they get to the school?
While St. Louis County and City released guidance for districts last week, plans for most individual districts are still unclear.
Teachers are scared and they don't want to come forward.
My children deserve better. And I need to know how school is going to look. And we don't know yet.
I don't think this system right now is being fair to my children or to us as educators.
News 4 reached out to the St. Louis Public School District and learned there's a committee made up of parents, teachers, union reps, and administrators working on that plan to reopen safely. We're told those recommendations will be released Tuesday. The public will then have until Friday to comment before the final plan is released 1 week from today.
We are already short-staffed. We are already short-staffed in terms of teachers, custodial staff, substitutes, bus drivers. Where will we get the staff to accommodate what their requirement is from the CDC as well as what the district has put out?
With the first day of school set for August 24th, Williams says time is running out, but the thought of not teaching at all brings her to tears.
It's hard to even think about it. I love teaching. I love what I do. I love my building. I love my coworkers.
Really emotional testimony there from that teacher out in St. Louis. And I'm sure a lot of teachers feel similarly. I'm getting back to what Senator John Kennedy said, that for people who hate America and people who want to see America burn and for people who love the chaos, no one is enjoying this. I don't see who benefits from people staying home and protecting themselves and protecting their families. And just to give you guys an idea about how infectious and how quickly coronavirus can spread, especially amongst children, I want you to take a look at this story. It's not a video, but it's an article that was in Syracuse.com about an in-home daycare provider from upstate New York, a town called DeWitt, New York, where a woman, I'm sure we all know people who have had or operated in-home daycare facilities in their house, right? So she's watching this kid. The mother was infected with COVID. The mother did not know she was infected with COVID, but she suspected she was infected with COVID and was awaiting her COVID test results. Okay. But she failed to quarantine. She did not stay home. She still took her child to this in-home daycare service provider. Well, the child was asymptomatic for COVID, but it turns out just for the child being present at that in-home daycare facility, 16 other people contracted the coronavirus, including 6 other children, including a number of adults, including 2 grandparents, was able to contract COVID from one kid. One. Can you imagine being a teacher standing in front of 15 kids for an hour, and then another 15 kids shuffle in, and then another 15 kids shuffle in? I would be scared poopless, to be perfectly honest. And Aman and Lisa, when I read that story coming out of upstate New York, I'm like, damn, like I always believe, I won't say always, but once I figured out that the coronavirus was real, I'm like, oh, no, it's contagious. And the fact that people have to work, right? So they are going to be trying to drop their kids off either at school or at daycare. And if people are asymptomatic, including children, we have not even seen the end of the first wave of this virus. And I feel as if we are still going about this completely ass backwards. What to do? What are working parents supposed to do, Lisa, for people who are not able to stay at home and who have to go to work because they're being compelled to go back to work because their unemployment benefits are about to end, because eviction protections are about to run out. I mean, we have really put people, working class people, in an impossible situation here where they are forced literally to choose between either life, death, or homelessness. Well, I mean, what are the options? This is almost like slavery. I mean, nothing is exactly like slavery, but damn, this is almost coming close.
Yeah, I mean, it's just when you put people in situations where they have to make decisions out of desperation, that's what happens. And we've kind of been put in this situation where we're all kind of, I was listening to a podcast and one of the hosts was like, none of us are at our best right now. We're all kind of working out of desperation and just surviving. And it doesn't have to be that way. Even, our little $1,200 stimulus check notwithstanding, this is a wealthy country. We can fix all of this. We can give ourselves and our leaders the time and space to fix this. But because of the Republicans in charge, because of the fascists in charge, that's not allowed to happen right now. Like even on that piece that you just ran, I'm not sure if they were talking about the final decision was going to come out this Tuesday or next Tuesday, but giving parents, telling people, okay, we're going to have this decision on Tuesday, and then we're going to finalize it on Friday, when parents are still trying to put food on the table, make it to another day, pick some clothes up off the floor and fold their clothes. That's nothing. And it's like, again, we're all making this more difficult than it has to be because of capitalism, because we're demanded to just keep churning out. And it's just like, none of this has to be the way that it is.
Aman, given that the fact that the Democrats are not currently in power, however, I mean, can they do something? I mean, is there something that can be done? Because, the usual sort of American facade is like everybody pretends not to be poor, right? But I think that's harder to do right now with so many people out of work, a lot of people who are probably making good money as hairstylists or, audio technicians, like whatever the job field was. If you weren't able to go to that job for 4 months, you lost a big chunk of money. So the pretense that, we're all not struggling is kind of gone. But I mean, we are at the mercy of this idiot in the White House and all of his demon spawn minion idiots around him who don't seem to have empathy or any sort of caring for the average working people, or even people who aren't working right now. What can the opposition party, do right now to assist the American people who are in extreme dire straits?
Yeah, I think the fact that Democrats have not managed to kind of put their weight behind the next stimulus package, or at least gotten it through, or, through the negotiation with the White House, also points to the fact that things are actually not working. And this is nothing new, Kim. This is exactly what when we say that the politics and the political system is broken, this is what it is. I mean, it's just not, it's easy for political opposition to have a lot of sloganeering going on. But when we look at the actual steps that have been taken in terms of putting some cushion, some financial cushion for the people that we're talking about who are being compromised in the middle of kind of coming to the brink of their unemployment benefits and still not having the jobs, or having to call back to jobs when their kids are home. These are the kind of compromises where you need that kind of a stimulus, a little bit of an extra money coming in. And the fact that Democrats have not managed to kind of push their way through that also is a fact that the entire system, both parties, have not managed to reach something, because you just can't take a clean sheet because you're in opposition to a sitting government. Frankly, I will not be willing to give that kind of a blank check to Democrats on that, because there are so many things that they could have done. They could have put their political weights behind defunding the police, for that matter. Where's the critique coming in on the education sector right now? So the fact yes, it's understood that there's a government in the day which is kind of bulldozing its agenda through this system. But the fact that there are not enough voices and kind of political momentum being built around these same issues in terms of the pushback, I have to say that there's a lot to be desired in terms of what a political opposition can do, and the fact that they have their people in different municipalities and different states as well.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good point, Aman. Like, I'm trying to remember the last time I saw Nancy Pelosi like do anything. I feel like it was that time where they all like took that weird symbolic knee. And like we should see them. I haven't even seen like Joe Biden doing anything. If he's, you know, our front runner, like I think that our times demand more than just being like the opposition party. Like you have to actually bring your own solutions. And I don't see that happening.
I absolutely agree. There could have been some consensus being built around the issues which matter right now. I mean, even these issues like education system that we're talking about, this is something that will determine every day what the life of a parent will look like. And the fact that from the Democratic quarters, not even a proposal has been put forward or put on the table to be negotiating or some active debate being generated in terms of giving some momentum to the opposition to what is going on right now, which means that you are actually giving like a freewheeling opportunity to people like Betsy DeVos to do what they're supposed to be, when she can just out loud come on the screen and the press conferences and say that, okay, well, if schools are not going to be open, well, they don't need the money. What kind of an argument is that? And if that is an argument, then where is the political opposition to it? So I absolutely agree, Lisa, that this is not really the time for the kind of obscurantist politics and conservative political gestures. And frankly, a lot of people are talking on Twitter about this, the Joe Biden just not being there. And it's as though everybody, they've just said, okay, we'll let this thing take its own momentum. We're not just going to bite into this shit sandwich, because we also do not have the counter proposals to the problem that the entire country is facing right now. And that's just equally bad. So I don't know what they're trying to gain out of this, but it's not as though people are not noticing. It is being noticed.
Yeah, I remember before Elizabeth Warren dropped out, the thing was that she had a plan for everything, which was kind of funny, but it's also like at this time when we're all terrified and angry and stressed out, why not come up with plans to show us what the alternative could be, what possibilities exist for us? I don't see that happening. Hey, Kim.
I'm sorry. Anyway, my computer almost died in the middle of Stir Crazy, and that would have been not good. So I had to get up and run around and do some things. From the comments, Umberto Misteroni says the people advocating for open schools during this pandemic always use countries that have socialized medicine, and no one mentions it. Why? That is an excellent point. Yes. All the countries that Senator Joe Kennedy named that have already reopened schools and so-called gotten back to business, these are all countries where their governments provide more than adequate healthcare for their citizens. And the United States doesn't seem to think that that's something that Americans need. Cryptician says Democrats are completely owned and controlled by corporate interests. They are a complete lost cause to the people at this point. I mean, how can you look at the Democratic leadership and say anything else but that? Yeah, they have not served as an adequate check on this president. They kept, trying to bring him in front of Congress for, the Mueller report and the Russia gate and this, that, and the third. Well, y'all can't seem to get Don on any of this stuff. So maybe why don't you try governing and do something that benefits the people and not try to necessarily take down Donald Trump, and not to say that Trump doesn't deserve to be taken down, but I think the people need help more so than we need to get rid of Trump. And we do need to get rid of Trump. Don't get me wrong about that at all. Speaking of Trump, though, we saw Trump visit Walter Reed Hospital over the weekend, and it was the first time, or really the second time, but the first time that he allowed himself or willingly was photographed wearing a mask. And the fact that mask wearing is such a contentious debate just goes to show you how dumb the United States of America is and Americans at large. The fact that we are even arguing about this, the fact that people want to fight over being asked to wear a mask, that people want to flash guns. Apparently there was a MAGA supporter, a gentleman wearing a red MAGA hat, who flashed a gun when asked to put on a mask while being out in public. We know that the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, has now mandated mask wearing again in public. He has closed indoor spaces, including restaurants, movie theaters, because California is back on fire again. And a lot of the places that originally were not mandating mask wearing now are. I'm thinking about Texas specifically. And the science says that if more people were to wear masks, we would have a lot better control over this virus. So I wanted to ask you guys this. This is sort of an interesting question in this moment, because as we know, the Black Lives Matter movement. We are on a ladder. We moving on up, just like the Jeffersons. But Black Lives Matter has brought forth the issue of over-policing and defunding the police. But there are some saying that in places where the coronavirus is running rampant and where people refuse to wear masks, perhaps people should be cited or even arrested for failing to wear a mask. Ironically, in Michigan had a very terrible outbreak of COVID. They seem to have gotten a better handle on this. The Democratic governor there, Gretchen Whitmer, has mandated a new mask order. The sheriff of Macomb County outside of Detroit has says that he won't enforce it. So let me ask y'all this: in this moment of simultaneous pandemic and reckoning of American policing, should we penalize people legally who refuse to wear masks? What is your take? Lisa, let's go with Lisa first.
Okay. So, I have a lot of thoughts. I'm going to try to condense them. I think that there's a reason that all of this is happening at once, because it all is like, at its roots is America's kind of long history of racism and inequality. I think that it intersects, like I was talking earlier about kind of like the way that Republicans have made everything, even though things should just be like regular no-brainers, these political issues. I think that part of that is the fault of journalism, which has always been kind of like a both sides matter thing. What's also happening right now, a reckoning in journalism, where we're talking about how Black and brown voices have been eliminated and how this kind of lie of this both sidism and this lie of being objective has been pressed for so long. So again, like we also bring in like the policing, like we can't, America's favorite thing, like that Chris Rock joke where his dad, like, if you're sick, just put some tussin on it. If you got your broken leg, put some tussin on it. Our thing is putting policing on everything. Like we don't have, that's the only thing we've come up with in like how many years, like hundreds of years of existing as a country. We can't just keep putting policing on everything, especially when we know that people are dying behind bars of COVID-19. It's just going through these, jails, prisons that were already terrible places to be, that were not reforming people for society. So it's like all of this is tied to a thing. Even like I wanted to bring up earlier, there was a story that came up yesterday where there's like, I think 1,000. A lot of employees at the CDC signed a letter saying that there's this kind of entrenched history of racism at the CDC. So like these things can all be beaten, but they can't be beaten until we get to the root of what's wrong here. And the root here, like I said, is racism and inequality. So hopefully that all made sense. It made sense in my head, but that's it. Done.
Yeah, I think Lisa pretty much said it all. So I'll just think of saying something different. Yeah, I think it's just criminalizing everything is not an answer to anything. I mean, we're trying to defund the police. We're trying to bring some kind of an external accountability to the police, and just telling the same police to kind of now come and police people who are not wearing masks is just not going to solve the problem. That's just not a good logic. What needs to happen is that the political classes and political elites should stop endangering people's lives for their own political benefits and stop questioning even the basics of science. The science is not even, it's such a common sense that the only thing that math does, that it kind of just doesn't let the droplets out of your mouth, which then becomes, kind of airborne and reach other people. So if you stop it there, you can stop probably a lot. You have a better chance of stopping other problems, which will clog the public health system the way it did in New York, and it's now doing other places as we speak. That's simple. That's just a one-liner simple message. But when you put in a politics and the kind of divisive politics that we have right now into this, suddenly it creates fissures, and then it becomes all kinds of problematic issue. Then people start fighting, and then this is what you get, and then you start endangering me. So I think the message is simple. There is no need for police, should never be a need for police. Just White House and the political elite should stop playing with people's life and politicizing this simple message.
So I think a lot of public health experts agree that the reason why the coronavirus is making such a resurgence in parts of the South and in the Southwest is because these are the states that reopened too quickly. And also lack of mask wearing. So if these places shut back down, which is not clear that they will, we know that Texas has again shut down their bars and I think some portions of indoor dining. But I mean, really the cat's out of the bag there. Florida is still wide open. I mean, you can go to Florida and maybe do almost whatever you want. I'm not really sure what Ron DeSantis is what his plan is. It's not much of a plan, clearly. But this is a behavior issue, right? I mean, the reason why coronavirus is exploding in the United States and not exploding other places is because collectively Americans don't subscribe to this, herd protection type of, theory. We are so individualized that, we think when I say we, I don't mean myself, but we as Americans seem to think that, wearing a mask somehow infringes on our freedoms. And you get these very excited Karens, out in the world talking about HIPAA laws protect them from not having to wear a mask when they go to the mall, which is preposterous. So how do we get out of coronavirus if there are significant portions of the population who are just going out of their way to be ignorant and then continue to spread the virus along? Like, we are being hindered by morons.
People, I think the people have said on Twitter, like, this is the reason why I never liked having group projects. I mean, like I said, I hope that what's happening in journalism, because I think that the stories that we tell about each other, the way that we present the news, I think that has a lot to do with how we see our world. And we can't keep framing this. Like, even with these stupid what are they, like the protests to be out and not wear masks? Journalists can't frame that as a regular protest. Like, there has to be, a way in which we talk about this with common sense. Like, that's not a freaking protest. That's just a temper tantrum. It's not scientific. It's not accurate. We can't do it. If we had a normal, I don't even know if I want to use that word. If we had, I'll say normal, a normal president who was just wearing a mask, it wouldn't be a thing. It would be a thing where, like, everyone would do it. There could be a way that it would be normalized in our society, like it's been normalized in so many communities already, even prior to coronavirus. And we can't fix that, but I think that as journalists, at least, people that we can push the people in our industries to start telling these things the right way, telling these, framing these arguments the right way. And maybe that could influence some people. I think there was a story about one person who died of coronavirus, and one of the person's last words was like, "I thought this was a hoax. I think I was wrong." And like, that's something that I think that journalists have a role in reframing and fixing.
That was the story of a young coronavirus victim. I think this person was like 30 or so years old. I did see that story as well. And that patient had attended a COVID party where all the idiots got together and said, let's try to get COVID, because that sounds like a brilliant plan. And here's my question though. Yes, we can certainly lay a lot of blame at the feet of Donald Trump, deservedly so. But, you know, the conservatives don't have to really look far for an idiot king, right? Even if it wasn't Trump who was in office right now, so let's say if it was Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden, who was very a part of believing the science and advocating wearing masks. All it takes is for Tucker Carlson or Sean Hannity to say masks are for pussies. You know what I mean? And then a whole legion of Fox News watchers would be like, yeah, masks are for pussies. We're not wearing masks. Like, I get blaming Trump, but this didn't have to be necessarily all because of Trump. Like, this is a mindset that far too many people in this country subscribe to, Aman.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's more like a behavioral, attitudinal issue as well. But look at it in this way, Kim. I mean, now we're seeing another resurgence of coronavirus. Not that it went away, but it's come back with a vengeance. And that's like amply shows everyone or anyone, or at least should show anyone, that this is a real issue. It's not a fiction. This thing is happening. It's a disease. It's a virus. It spreads from people to people. And there's enough evidence now to suggest that this should not be taken lightly. The problem now is that not just politically, but even otherwise, like Lisa said, even journalistically, this is a lens which has come to stay. And a lot of things need a revision, and a lot of social revisioning and revisiting of our attitudes and behaviors need to happen. And the thing is that when do we need this to happen when a lot of people are dead? Then when people would be willing to listen when tragedy arrives at their doorstep? I think that really is the real point here, because everything is otherwise happening. People are dying and stories are there and people can see them too. But yet if people are willing to behave in a manner that they do, that probably what the message is that, okay, I'll deal with it when it arrives at my doorstep. And that's tragic. So I think I agree that the message here is that this thing is going to be there for foreseeable future. And it's about time that kind of a collective revisioning of our values and social attitudes should take place.
Yeah, breaking news coming out of LA County as of a couple of hours ago. It appears as though maybe Los Angeles, the city, may shut down again because the COVID cases are surging. Los Angeles County being hit particularly hard there. Guys, before we log off, I want us to just take a moment to observe Bastille Day. In France, I think it was 1789. Help me with my history. Anybody who knows history better than me. July 14th, a group of pissed off protesters went up to the prison. They said, let our people go. And they said, maybe. And they said, well, we're not taking maybes. We're just going to go in there and liberate out everybody. And there wasn't that many people in the prison inside the Bastille. The Bastille was the name of the prison. And they stormed the Bastille, hence Bastille Day. And that event is widely viewed historically as what led to the French Revolution, which the French Revolution, many people on the left view quite favorably, is when the elites got their heads yapped off via guillotine, and so many people pine for the days for the guillotine to come back for the super rich. Guys, how apropos is a Bastille Day 2020 in the year 2020, especially here in the United States? Now, granted, we don't see the guillotines being rolled up Pennsylvania Avenue or in front of Jeff Bezos' house. Although, did you see that one protest where they did put a guillotine in front of Jeff Bezos' house, which was amazingly brilliant? But how can we view Bastille Day through the lens of what's happening in America in this moment of 2020, Aman?
Well, I think, Kim, it's this moment where a lot of social contract just needs to be redrawn in so many ways. And unless that happens, the momentum which we are seeing in terms of cities being shut down again, not because that they sense that this would happen. No, they first let things happen only for deaths to pile on enough to then go ahead and shut things down, is exactly the point that I was making early on, which is a bad approach. This is a failed approach. This is like, okay, enough people are dead, let's shut it down again. And then what? You open it again and let people, die again and say, oh, let's shut it down again. That's not how public management happens. This is a failure of public policy. And I think going forward, unless this kind of a new social revision is done collectively, not just by the people, but political parties and other civil rights groups, which articulate people's will in terms of how best to move forward, this is how it will continue to be as it is today. But it could be different next year.
Lisa, painting Black Lives Matter in front of Trump Tower does send a message, but not the same message as the guillotine, no. I'm not advocating. I'm not suggesting we guillotine the president. Let me just be clear, Secret Service. Please don't come knock on my door. Nobody said that. Nobody said that. It's just
don't think that's what these are jobs.
please, girl. They would be at my house in Tucson. They might be walking up my porch right now. But seriously, I mean, the fact that there was a point in time when the proletariat struck a blow against the elite in a very violent way. And, sometimes violence does beget results. So how can we look at Bastille Day in 2020 terms?
There are more of us than there are of them. That does not mean we got to get to chopping folks' heads off or, dragging them through the town. But we saw, you did your interview. I can't remember if it was this week. It was last week with the white coats for Black Lives. They were saying there is value in protest. We know that people have had protests and have not. It has not caused spikes in COVID-19. So we can show up with our bodies. We can show up with our voices. We can help support. We had a freelancer who did a piece on people who can donate money to bail funds. We have to remind these people there are more of us than there are of them.
Well said. Lisa Snowden, Aman Azhar, I'd like to thank you both sincerely from the bottom of my heart for joining us today on Stir Crazy. I really appreciate it. You guys' opinions are so valuable and your perspectives are so lived and informed. I appreciate y'all taking the time to speak with us. Thank you.
Enjoyed it.
Thanks, Kim, for having us.
No worries. Hey, gang, we will see y'all on Thursday. You can email us, stircrazy@therealnews.com. Don't send me no crazy emails. That's all I'm saying. I got a couple crazy emails. Don't send me no more crazy emails. Just send me, what's up, Kim? How your dog's doing? Whatever. But no, let us know any ideas and stuff that you have about the show. I am reading them. Just give me a chance to reply. I will get back to you. I do promise. Okay. Thanks to everyone who was watching and everyone participating in the chat. We will see y'all on Thursday. Don't forget Wednesday. Dwayne, is that correct? Is there a new episode of Why You Should Give a Fuck? Tomorrow, 7 p.m. right here on your YouTubes. Why You Should Give a Fuck. Tunde Ogunfolaju and Genevieve Montanar. They have a fantastic new show here on The Real News. You should definitely check it out. Wednesdays, 7 p.m. We will see y'all here again on Stir Crazy on Thursday. Y'all have a good rest of your evening. See you. Bye.
Ciao, everyone.